publicity she's received since Game of Thrones premiered, there are still plenty of fun facts and discoveries to be made about the talented actress Emilia Clarke, a singular talent who still has an extraordinary future ahead of her. Here are just a few of the untold truths about Clarke's life and career. Thanks to her starring role in HBO's massive hit series Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke has become one of the most recognizable faces on television. Beyond Game of Thrones, Clarke has appeared in other high-profile roles too, including star turns in films like Solo: A Star Wars Story and Terminator Genisys. So far, her most significant role has certainly been Daenerys Targaryen, otherwise known as Khaleesi and the Mother of Dragons. Game of Thrones is a notoriously fleshy adventure series, and Emilia Clarke racked up quite a few nude scenes during the show's first season. In 2017, she told Actors on Actors,
"The naked stuff is always difficult. It's always kind of hard because it's just uncomfortable for many reasons."
As she told Entertainment Weekly, her life took a turn for the incredibly awkward when she wound up watching one of those nude scenes with her family. Whoops. I ended up sitting down with them and being like, let's watch it, and then instantly regretting it. My dad was like, again? Graham Norton was clearly tickled by that anecdote.
Did you watch it with your parents?
Yes.
Clarke had no qualms about appearing nude on stage in a production of Breakfast at Tiffany's, which premiered at New York's Court Theater in 2013. Naturally, a big name like Clarke drew huge crowds, including some exceedingly creepy patrons who took photos of Clarke during her nude scenes. Unfortunately, the show was slammed by critics and closed after only 38 performances. It's too bad her first theatrical outing was tarnished by weird audience members and bad reviews, but at least now she's got a Broadway credit to her name, and there will likely be many more in the future. After her breakout role on Game of Thrones, Clarke was inundated with film offers, with one big franchise standing out from the pack. Reportedly, Clarke was offered the lead role of Anastasia Steele in 50 Shades of Grey, the first in a trilogy of theoretically sexy films based on the best-selling series of trashy novels. Ultimately, Clarke decided to turn down the role, which famously went to Dakota Johnson, who starred alongside British actor Jamie Dornan for the entirety of the series. In a 2015 interview with Kiss FM, Clarke played a little bit coy about the decision.
But is it true that you turned down the 50 Shades of Grey role?
Oh, well, yeah.
Clarke has explained why she made that decision. 50 Shades could certainly have given her more exposure as an actor, but it wasn't the kind of exposure she wanted. After her history of nude scenes on stage and screen, Clarke didn't want to be labeled as any specific type of performer. She says she really doesn't regret turning down the role. Considering the bleak critical reception the trilogy received, it seems like she definitely made the right choice. Add Emilia Clarke's name to the long, illustrious list of tattooed celebrities. Clarke's first tattoo was dedicated to her role in Me Before You, where she played a big-hearted caretaker who has a tattoo of a bumblebee. Well, guess what Clarke got inked on her pinky finger?
I got a bumblebee.
Oh, and what is that?
So badass. It's like,
actually
you
kinda
badass
cool.
going to get a tattoo. What'd you get? A bumblebee.
Bumblebee.
My thing. It's still got the plaster on it.
Naturally, Clarke needed to get a Game of Thrones tattoo, too. And guess what she went for this time?
I was in a tattoo parlor the other day trying to make an appointment, and they said that they were full because you're coming in to get a tattoo of a dragon?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe they aren't the biggest dragons we've ever seen, but they are dragons. Clarke was seemingly born to be an actor, considering that her father worked in the theater community in London as a sound engineer. The first show Clarke ever saw as a child was Showboat. She was enthralled, falling in love with the theater right then and there. However, her dad wasn't quite so enthusiastic about her goals. In fact, he took her to a real audition in the West End in the hopes of scaring her away from the profession. She bombed completely, showing up unprepared with just a folk song to her name. As she continued pursuing her dream, Clarke said her dad's only advice was to be aware of the many pitfalls of the profession. He reminded her that actors rarely make a living off their passion, and even told her that the only line she ever needed to memorize was, "Do you want fries with that?" We're sure her dad had the best intentions, but fans around the world must be glad Clarke kept at it. She eventually attended the prestigious Drama Centre London, and the rest is history. Well, more or less. After graduating, Clarke's acting career got off to a rather quiet start. She had a few bit parts in commercials and made appearances on British shows like Doctors, and even a dreadful sci-fi original movie called Triassic Attack. In 2010, Screen International named her one of the UK Stars of Tomorrow, and they were right on the money. She scored her audition for Game of Thrones shortly after that career milestone. But Clarke still had to make sure her bills were paid. At the time she landed the role, Clark was reportedly working 6 jobs, including a gig as a real estate agent. Due to the importance of that particular audition, Clark called in sick to her catering job that day. Obviously, her efforts were well worth it, as she booked the role of a lifetime and quickly became one of the most celebrated young actresses in the industry. Take that, catering job. The fact that Clark even got to audition for Game of Thrones is rather extraordinary, considering the pilot had already been shot by the time she got that fateful call from her agent. However, the original pilot was a dismal failure. Before you think that's too harsh a description, it comes from series creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who blamed unclear storytelling, melodramatic death scenes, and bad casting. They eventually reshot about 90% of the episode. The creators have politely declined to discuss why they recast the role of Daenerys, which was originally played by actress Tamsin Merchant, best known for roles like Catherine Howard on The Tudors. The original pilot never saw the light of day, and now it's impossible to imagine anyone but Clark playing Daenerys. Over the course of 7 seasons, she's been nominated for several Emmy Awards and has made the role completely her own. She'll probably be referred to as the Mother of Dragons for many more years to come. Emilia Clarke is the first to admit that her Game of Thrones audition took an odd turn. Prior to her audition, she'd spent hours scouring Wikipedia to learn more about A Song of Ice and Fire, George R.R. Martin's book series on which Game of Thrones is based. As she told Jimmy Fallon, showrunners Benioff and Weiss asked Clarke about her other talents after she'd read a few lines of dialogue. Then they suggested she do a dance.
I don't know how to do it, but I did the funky chicken. And I kind of morphed into the robot, and that's what I heard some laughter going on.
Afterwards, she evidently didn't feel particularly hopeful about the audition. Of course, she was cast in the role shortly afterwards. Clarke may have gotten giggles out of the showrunners, but they still got a taste of the remarkable intensity she uses to bring Daenerys to life. In fact, it sounds like they were completely sold on her right out of the gate.
Our certitude was as religious as Daenerys's. She was the one.
Until recently, Emilia Clarke kept one period of her life completely private. In a moving personal essay published in The New Yorker in March 2019, she revealed that she'd survived a very serious health scare. During a session with her personal trainer, Clarke suffered a debilitating brain aneurysm. Only a third of patients survived what she endured. After a minimally invasive form of brain surgery, Clarke learned that she had a smaller aneurysm elsewhere in her brain that could also pop. Shaky, exhausted, and partially reliant on morphine, Clarke bravely went back to work and continued filming Game of Thrones. Then in 2013, the second aneurysm burst, requiring a much more invasive surgery. An incredibly difficult road to recovery lay ahead.
The second one, there was a bit of my brain that actually died. If a part of your brain doesn't get blood to it for a minute, it will just no longer work.
In her essay, Clarke writes that she's now, quote, 100% recovered. She also started a charity called Sane You to help patients suffering from strokes and other brain injuries. As a professional actress and public figure, Clarke's brave decision to speak out about the most difficult period of her life speaks volumes about her character. Despite her personal successes, 2016 was a difficult year for the young star. In the aftermath of Brexit, an issue near and dear to Clarke's heart as a Londoner, she lost a family member shortly after the vote, and both situations set her adrift, personally and professionally. Clarke's father had suffered from cancer for years and succumbed to his illness in July 2016. Sadly, she couldn't be there during his final days. While his health declined, she was filming a movie in Kentucky. After cutting the filming short, she finally arrived in London, only to learn that he had already passed away. This was absolutely devastating to Clarke, especially since she was due back on the Game of Thrones set in 3 weeks. She told Rolling Stone that the experience only made her stronger. Since her father's death, she's praised the nurses who cared for him, vowing that she'd always support England's medical community from that day forward. In 2018, she became an ambassador for London's Royal College of Nursing, joining the school's ongoing campaign for financial support from the British government and the NHS. When a cast is sworn to secrecy while filming one of the world's hottest shows in far-flung locations, it's only natural that they'd become close friends. Clarke is no exception. Daenerys started off the series with a wedding to Khal Drogo, played by future Aquaman star Jason Momoa. The two became fast friends while they were quartered in Morocco together. Though Drogo was dead by the end of the first season, Momoa and Clarke have remained very close. In fact, they refer to each other as, quote, the moon of my life and my sun and stars. To this day, Momoa seems like one of Clarke's biggest supporters, and fans are always delighted by their reunions, which have taken place at major award shows and Comic-Con, where Momoa made a surprise appearance that did indeed succeed succeed in startling Clark. Now, as the show ends, Clark will almost certainly be closing out her character storyline alongside Kit Harington. He, of course, plays the brooding Jon Snow, the presumed bastard who is actually Daenerys' royal nephew and her lover. Yup. Luckily, she and Harington seem to be having a great time together on set, especially when they're joking around about their love scenes.
I mean, I think kind of might be the reaction.
I like looking at her and going, oh God, I'm sorry.
The pair have been friends since the first season, and each of them is excited to finish the series with a friend at their side. As Daenerys, Clark is no stranger to traveling through foreign lands, often on foot. At the beginning of Game of Thrones, she begins a long journey from the native land of the Dothraki warrior clan, located across the narrow sea from Westeros, in order to finally take back the Iron Throne of the Seven Kingdoms. She gets turned around several times over, ending up in Slaver's Bay and subsequently taking control of several slave cities before finally ending up in Westeros in the 7th season. Thanks to this storyline, Clark herself has gotten to travel to several exotic filming locations over the years, including Croatia, Ireland, Iceland, and Spain. Like her character, Clark became a world traveler at a young age. At just 16, she embarked on a backpacking trip through northern India, continuing into Tibet, having made the journey to scatter the ashes of her grandmother, who was born in Delhi. A few years later, she made a similar journey through Southeast Asia as well as South Africa, proving that she's just as adventurous as her signature character. No surprise there. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Game of Thrones are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.
Fans are falling in line. The 8th and final season of Game of Thrones is coming in less than a year. The White Walkers are close, so we'd better hurry up to reveal the most intriguing real-life facts about your favorite characters. The love stories on the show are very much tangled, but it turns out that the actors share the same tight-knit connection off-screen as well. Find out who the real-life partners of the cast of Game of Thrones are. And before we start, we share new exciting celebrity videos every weekday. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Jon Snow and Ygritte. Wow, looks like Jon Snow does know something. Kit Harington and Rose Leslie have just married. The engagement was announced in September in the Times in the best old-fashioned manner, as Rose comes from a Scottish noble family. The family, friends, and the cast of Game of Thrones arrived at the Rose family castle in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. The actors of Game of Thrones at the wedding. Be ready for some massive scuffle, but no worries. The marvelous ceremony went great. Kit and Rose met on the set of the show 6 years ago. Kit recalls their time together on the set, saying, "If you're already attracted to someone and then they play your love interest in the show, it becomes very easy to fall in love." Poor Ygritte. If she only knew with whom Jon Snow is now breaking his Night's Watch oath. Oh, if only the King of the North knew with whom he's having an affair. The family and romance bonds are more than tangled on the show, so let's check on the other relative lover couples on the show. Daenerys Targaryen. She is known by many names. Daenerys Stormborn of the House Targaryen, first of her name, the Unburnt, Queen of the Andals and the First Men, Khaleesi of the Great Grassy, Breaker of Chains, and Mother of Dragons. Phew! But in real life, she simply goes by Emilia Clarke. It seems that the Mother of Dragons has a long list of men who worshipped her, but it seems that none of them have moved her heart. Does the actress have better luck with men off-screen? Hard to believe, but Emilia is still single. Although her dating history may surprise you. We don't want to disappoint the fans of Khal Drogo and Khaleesi, but when the cameras turn off, they are just friends. Despite the chemistry and passionate love scenes, Emilia and Jason didn't have an affair as it was rumored. It's clear why fans talked about the romance, considering the sweet and loving Instagram posts they shared about each other. Her dating list does not include Kit Harington either. Although Jon Snow, aka Aegon Targaryen, looks like a perfect match for Dany. Off-screen, there's only friendship. The only name that we know for sure to be on Clark's list is Seth MacFarlane. Yeah, the creator of the American Dad and Family Guy cartoons. You wonder why they broke up within a year? Because of Game of Thrones' intense filming schedule. Too much time apart brought their relationship to an end. Others whom Emilia dated were either too minor for fans to recognize, or had vanished from the radar even before they were noticed, like James Franco, with whom Emilia had a couple of dates. It all ended before it was ever made public. In interviews, Clark said that she's done dating actors, but that they are practically the only people that she knows. We hope that when the show ends, she'll have more time to find her dragon to settle down with, as she's already stated she does want a family. Yes, I want babies. I don't know about marriage, but I do want to find a human that you'd want to create a family with, says Amelia. Cersei and Jaime Lannister. Cersei and Jaime share more than a sister-brother love on the show. In real life, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, who plays the handsome, golden-haired Prince Jaime, is married to Greenlandic singer Nukaka Coster-Waldau. The couple has been happily married for 20 years and has 2 beautiful daughters. On The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, the Danish actor admitted his wife hasn't watched the show since the premiere episode 7 years ago. Nikolai commented, "When you know someone really well, it becomes a little ridiculous to see them pretending to be someone else." Lena Headey, who plays his wicked sis Cersei, was married to the ruler of the 7 Kingdoms, King Robert. In real life, Lena is engaged to Dan Caden, but she has a short dating history with the show cast. Long ago, 10 years before the start of the TV series, Lena was dating Jerome Flynn. Yes, the actor who plays Bronn, the soldier and Jaime's right hand. Literally the right hand, as the prince has lost the other. According to a source from the show's set, Lena and Jerome are not on speaking terms and are never in the same room at the same time. Rumor has it that Lena might have dated another actor from the show, Pedro Pascal, aka Oberyn Martell. They were both caught on camera, shopping in Hollywood, walking down the street, and hugging. Pedro opened up about Lena in his interview. "I think everyone on that set and anyone who comes in contact with her develops an instant crush." Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion Lannister, played by Peter Dinklage, struggles to find love and appreciation from his family. But Peter's real life is the complete opposite. 48-year-old Dinklage has been married to writer-director Erica Schmidt for more than a decade, and the couple shares a 5-year-old daughter. Just last year, the happy family welcomed the second baby to the family. He is a very loving father and husband. It's probably the best role in his life. By the way, the writer and producer, George R.R. Martin, wanted Peter Dinklage to play Tyrion in the series, so they gave him the role without auditioning. Turns out Peter and Lena Headey have been longtime friends since before the show. So he was the one who suggested her for the role of Cersei. And not in vain, she is very talented. Cersei's hatred and contempt towards Tyrion is so convincing, you never guess they are friends in real life. Khal Drogo. The sex symbols on Game of Thrones like Jaime, Jon Snow, Robb Stark, and Daario Naharis captivated the audience with their valor and nobility. But this guy won the hearts of millions of women by showcasing his indomitable spirit, strength, and of course, muscles. Khal Drogo is the warlord of the Dothraki people, who is used to taking whatever he wants with violence and reprisal. In contrast, the actor for this role, Jason Momoa, is a very sensitive and caring man. He has been with his wife Lisa Bonet for 12 years. Even though they've known each other for so long, they got secretly married last year in LA. In an interview, Jason confessed that he fell in love with Lisa when he was 8, when he saw her on the screen. Incredibly, the two met at a party years later. Jason was so embarrassed and shy to meet his childhood crush, he couldn't believe it was happening. Jason and Lisa have 2 beautiful little kids. Bonnet, who's 11 years older than Momoa, also has daughter Zoe Kravitz with her ex-husband Lenny Kravitz. The family keeps their private life a big secret. But Momoa shared his thoughts about kids in an interview. "I want to be remembered as, I hope, an amazing husband and a great father. He's sure his life without kids is a waste of time." Arya and Sansa Stark. Arya and Sansa Stark are the most enduring characters on the show. Sophie Turner, who plays Sansa, increased her popularity not only after her character grew stronger, but also when she started dating singer Joe Jonas. They are the hottest young couple in Hollywood for sure. The two shocked the celebrity world even more when Joe proposed to Sophie within a year of dating. A huge fast jump that was a surprise even for Sophie. But it doesn't matter, since the couple is madly in love. Among other A-listed stars, Jonas also dated Taylor Swift and Demi Lovato. Insiders say Sophie is just not like the girls Jonas dated before, whatever that means. The couple is so adorable, they've just got matching tattoos with the sweetest meaning. Each got a tattoo in honor of their grandfathers. Sophie and Joe haven't announced the official wedding date, but we are absolutely sure that Maisie Williams will be her bridesmaid. Growing up on set, the Stark sisters became very caring about each other, and now are the best of friends. Maisie, who plays Arya Stark, has been dating Ollie Jackson for 3 years now. He is not famous and not much is known about him, but Maisie did reveal they met in school. I don't meet anyone else. I don't meet the other young, male actors. I just like normal people, I guess, told Williams. Even though Sophie and Macy aren't dating, they are a couple in some ways. They are so adorable when goofing around that they call themselves Mophie. Missandei. Missandei, played by Nathalie Emmanuel, is nearly the only sweet and non-murderous character on the show. She found her only love and complete antipode, Grey Worm, and we hope they will be together alive by the end of the series. But right now, Nathalie is single in real life. Back in 2011, she started dating her screen partner on the soap opera Hollyoaks. Nathalie kept the details a secret, but on Jimmy Kimmel Live, she confessed. It's difficult to find people when you're always moving around. It's tough to find people who are super secure and encourage you to fly. Maybe that became a problem for the couple so many years later. Brienne Tarth. Gwendolyn Christie, who plays Brienne Tarth, looks absolutely stunning both in armor and in couture. Her real-life knight, Giles Deacon, designs her special armor. Gwendolyn and Giles have been dating for 4 years. For Deacon, she's more than just a partner. He says Christie is a fantastic muse for him. Giles works with A-listed stars, including Kate Moss, Angelina Jolie, and Cate Blanchett, and he even designed the exquisite wedding dress for Pippa Middleton. We are used to seeing Brienne Tarth as a strong-willed and irreproachable knight on the screen. But in real life, her power and confidence is clothed in silk gowns and elegant costumes. Aside from being an outspoken feminist and philanthropist, Gwendolyn has a perfect sense of style. That probably added to Giles' admiration for her. What a lucky girl. They both draw inspiration from each other. Hopefully we will hear some engagement news very soon. The new season of Game of Thrones promises to be hot, even though winter has come. We hope for some great happy endings, not only for the characters, but for the actors in real life too. Let us know who's your favorite couple from the list in the comments below. Check out these other great stories from Asa, and subscribe for new videos about your favorite stars.
You can't see that happening?
I think they need to show it. I think they can't just show Dany burning fire onto a building and now Cersei's dead.
Well,
no,
they wouldn't
see her die.
Surely they can portray that, like the roof collapses on her or something like that. Like that would be the kind of elegant, like you don't see the blood, but it's 100% certain she's dead.
Yeah,
like the Emperor falling. Like the guy's dead. That kind of thing. Well, maybe he's not dead.
Again, I'm not going to make a strong. I'm not going to make a strong argument against it, but I'm just saying it.
Okay, all right.
I won't be like, I can't believe they killed Cersei. I won't have that kind of reaction, but I'm more prepared for it to not.
Well, what about Jaime?
Same thing. I think he's more likely to die than Cersei. I'll say that. And I think that the way he dies could be a lot of different ways. I basically expect him to die in a sacrifice of some sort, whether it's in an attempt to kill Cersei or to save Cersei or to save Jon or to save the innocent people of Westeros. Like I can imagine him like jumping on a grenade, if you will.
That would be the same thing. That would be the same kind of portrayal as he has to kill Cersei to stop her from doing the same thing Aerys was going to do. Because that wildfire is still there. Right, there's still wildfire all over King's Landing.
Right, but I can see him being in a situation like
which, by the way,
like Lancel was.
Which, by the way, that could be Dany accidentally blowing it all up.
Yep.
Which would be
another way Cersei could paint Dany as the villain here.
Not if she dies. If the wildfire goes off, Cersei's not living, is my guess.
Right, but what if Jaime...
And Dany wouldn't either.
What if Jaime sneaks into King's Landing and gets Cersei out of there? Just removes her from King's Landing and or sail off in a boat to Dorne or something.
She's not going. She's in the game. She's the one who said, you win or you die. She's not living.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
But that would be an example of them failing to match the foreshadowing if she lives. So I will be frustrated if she lives. Okay, so the counter question here from Seth Wilkins, who also wanted to know who's likely to die, which we've discussed, but he wants to know who is definitely safe, which you wouldn't say Cersei is definitely safe.
No.
And you certainly wouldn't say that about Jaime. Who do you think is definitely safe? Or I'll start by answering that, and you can think about it because you took the lead on the last one. I'll say definitely safe. Davos is definitely safe. I think Tyrion is definitely safe, and that's it. I don't think anyone else is definitely safe.
With you. I don't think Tyrion's definitely safe.
Okay.
I I guess Davos is the most safe character in King's Landing.
Well, what do you think is? Why do you put Tyrion over Davos? I mean, Davos over Tyrion, rather.
Because Davos isn't the one being part of treasonous talk.
Well, Tyrion hasn't agreed to it yet.
He hasn't agreed to it, but Davos hasn't been part of it. He's not.
That's true.
It's just he has no real danger in that.
He would be part of it soon, though.
Yeah, he might be, but we just have seen that Tyrion has had this discussion and is going to be talking to Daenerys about certain things, and she might. Yeah. Okay. I'm more worried about Tyrion than Davos because of that.
One thing I'm certain of is that, and people are worried about, and I don't think they should be worried about, but, to each his own, is that Jon will kill Dany. This is so not going to happen, in my opinion. That's super, super unlikely. If someone kills Dany, it'll be herself, like, not intentionally, but, the wildfire scenario, or her just, like, going too far, losing it in battle. But, yeah, Jon doing the deed himself, no. Maybe even, yeah.
I thought of another person I think that's safest and that is not in King's Landing yet, but will be, I guess. Arya.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to
I don't think Arya dies either. I don't think there's any chance Arya dies.
But she's just on her way to King's Landing, so I'm going to count her among the King's Landing characters, whereas we wouldn't count Sansa or Pod or Brienne or something.
Does Sandor get to live after killing his brother, or does he...
I think he dies too.
Fail, or they both die?
I think he dies.
I don't think he fails, but both dying maybe.
Yeah, I think he dies.
Okay. I think he dies, yeah.
Okay. So we haven't named a whole lot of characters we think are safe. I mean, if you go back to like Winterfell, like Sansa's totally safe in my opinion. Like, there's no chance she dies unless Tormund comes after Jon to like part of some rescue. He's safe too.
I generally speaking do think that the characters that stayed north or whatever are safe.
The question was King's Landing specifically. Right. So yeah,
I'll tell you though, I don't necessarily even think that Davos is safe.
Okay.
Although, let me like argue back and forth against myself. Okay. Going back to the Red Wedding, I felt like leading up to the Red Wedding, they gave us some more time with Talisa, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like they did that to make it more tragic when she got killed.
To rip her heart out later.
More, right. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I thought was happening with Brienne. Right.
Okay.
That's why I was so sure that Brienne was going to die. That the fact
that they got a different kind of heartbreak.
Right. Yeah.
She lives, but she's been, jilted or whatever.
But my point being that it makes sense that the characters that it would be most heart-wrenching to die are the ones that would die.
I guess
you didn't think of Caitlyn
for a while,
right? Well, that's what I'm gonna say. It's like earlier on.
Yeah, earlier on,
Caitlyn's not charging into battle. She's not in harm's way. She doesn't deserve to die. So you don't think she's going to. And holy crap, she does. And so now you start, well, anyone could. And you're like looking for hints that someone might die. And one hint is that they charge into battle. But another hint is that you really care about them.
Yeah.
You really cared about the almost the more righteous they are. It's almost like a target on their back, Oberon, so that makes me feel like Davos would be one of the most heart-wrenching characters to die, and he's heading into battle again. Is he really going to make it through a fourth major battle like no one else has?
Maybe not, but this is a battle I don't know he's going to be super, super involved in, but maybe he will be.
You know what I really want for Davos? I want, for the final he lives, there's a final episode where you see, whatever, montage-y thing where like, it goes over all the different characters that are alive, where they are now, that sort of thing. I kind of expect them to do that. There's so many characters they want us to see, like Sam and Gilly and the baby and the new baby, something like that. But Davos, I just want to see him coming home to his wife and her just slapping him in the face. Like, not a letter? You learn to read and write. Poor Maria. Anyways.
He's going to go back there and pretend he still doesn't know how to read and write. He's like, no, I still don't know how to. What can I do?
By the way, here's one death prediction that I have. Magic. Okay. Magic is going to die. I think we start the series off with it appearing.
But it's definitely there before it appears. It's just muted.
Right. Maybe die is not the right word, but it's going to fade away. I think that the Night King's dead. I think that if Drogon doesn't die, he's going to fly off to Essos. I think that
Shay made that prediction, right? That's your prediction, yeah?
Yeah, to Valyria.
To Valyria. She's talking more specifically with Drogon, which I agree with.
Yeah, with Drogon, because I was thinking about Fire and Blood. There's a bit with Arya Targaryen and Balerion.
And the show did it, too.
And the show did it. Drogon went there.
And by the way, Arya might not die, but I do think she's going to fade away. She's going to not go back to Winterfell.
I agree.
I think all the mystical characters, Melisandre's gone. I think all the mystical, fantastic characters are all going to be gone by the end.
Okay.
Which would include the Mountain and
maybe
even Qyburn.
Qyburn probably too. Yeah, I don't see Qyburn living.
I don't know if that would apply to Jon.
Yeah. Now here, let me just say one more thing about these.
Ghost went back north.
Yeah.
The direwolves appearing that far south. That was like unusual in the beginning, like he's going to go back.
Now, one other thing that I think is pretty relevant here that's, well, not relevant, but to kind of speaking back to our old prediction, something that wasn't working, they're in a lot of danger and they're not not a super major character like prediction style. Pretty much failed us like almost all the time. That just didn't work as a prediction. That's not, and the thing of it is, that's because this isn't logical. And I don't mean that the show isn't logical. It is and it isn't. I mean that these are stories, and the most likely to die, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
That doesn't ever matter. It's how they want it to go, and what George has told them, and the combination of those two things, and like being in the front lines in a story that doesn't really, in certain stories it does. Like if that pattern is developed, then you follow it, but that pattern hasn't been developed here.
There's also, I pointed this out just when we were talking before, that a lot of these things that you want to predict because it seems like they're building up to it. It seems like there's this poetry to it, this artistic unity of Jon tells Theon, you can be both, a Stark and a Greyjoy. So now Theon's going to come back and tell Jon, you can be both, a Targaryen and a Stark. But that didn't happen. Well, life doesn't always work out poetically. So Bronn isn't necessarily going to kill Tyrion with that crossbow.
So basically, each of you, Aziz is saying, hey, you can ignore certain things because sometimes things just happen how they're going to write it in a poetic way. And Sean's saying the exact inverse of that, which makes sense because it's a show that they write. But it's just funny. Your points were the inverse of one another.
But it kind of got to the same place. That's funny. From DTS, could the ash we see in the throne room vision be Dragonstone exploding? It's built on a volcano, is it not? It is built on, well, the island is volcanic, yes. I wouldn't say it's not on a volcano. There's just volcanoes it's a volcanic island, you could say. But I really don't think so, because in those scenes of the throne room, not only is the ceiling collapsed, but there's just so much ash that I don't think that would come from a volcanic explosion that's not that close. It's still leagues away by sea. It's not close enough, I think, to have blown a hole in the ceiling and done all that stuff. So I think we're still stuck with the most likely interpretation of that the burned throne room is this wildfire plot that's been left behind. And by the way, Sean, there's another piece of evidence that I should have mentioned in this discussion. Bran's visions of the dragon over King's Landing, which is probably Drogon at this point, includes visions of wildfire, King Aerys, and Jaime stabbing him. Those are all the elements there.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's really why I'm thinking that this is Jaime's arc, is to be the Queen Slayer, and he has to kill his own sister to do it, because she's the one threatening to do all this. But
it would be pretty tragic if Jaime goes in, kills Cersei, and then Cersei would have died anyway, whether wildfire, dragonfire, or whatever.
Wow, that's a great. Good point.
As he's thrusting a knife in, the dragon burns flames down.
That would be, man. That could be it.
That's it. That's my prediction.
Well, that's funny, because next question is Thomas Pappas. Curious to how Sean Aziz and Shay would like the episode to play out. Is that your prediction? Well, he says how you would like it to play out. I don't know if that's how you would like it to play out. But we all like being right, though. So.
It is how I'd like it to play out if I'm right.
I would like them to back off and be like, let's not kill everybody, and let's find another way to kill Cersei.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's possible.
Right. What I would like to happen in quote unquote reality, you know what I mean, is for the least number of people to die, for just people to be in charge at the end. But I wouldn't like them to actually write it that way, because it would be disappointing. It'd be boring. It wouldn't be tragic. It wouldn't evoke any emotions. So yeah, it's such a weird thing. Many times it comes up where you want people to die. Why do I say want people to die? But I want to be moved. Yeah. I want to care. I want it to be emotional. I want it to be powerful. To matter.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
You want the tension to be real. Yeah. Well, Shay, what do you think? Do you have some opinion? You have an answer for Tommy here?
On what I would like to happen.
What you would like to happen.
And what I would like to happen, I would like for people to not infight and kill each other, and for the Targaryen forces, which are Jon and Dany, to not, do that. But I think it's going to happen. But I would like for that to not happen. I just want them to have a united front. So that.
I would like the characterizations to be strong. You know, like I have more of a simple wish, I suppose, more of a general wish that it's going to be probably this huge battle. From what we've seen as far as behind the scenes stuff, this is an enormous battle set, just ridiculously huge, and they didn't, you know, hang that on the wall not to use it. So it's going to be a very action-oriented episode, but we have all these major plot elements that need to be resolved, and I hope they handle them well. So that's what I want. I hope they do a good job. That's really what I want to play out. I don't want the fandom to hate it afterwards, and I know some people will no matter what. You're going to get 25, 30% the fandom hating it. I don't want 50 to 80% of it to hate it.
Yeah.
You know, I want us to end on at least a decent note where people aren't like hating the whole experience, which would be really unfortunate because we had a lot of fun going through this. If the last episode stinks, second last episode stinks, I hope that doesn't ruin the whole thing for people because that's just too bad. That would be the tragedy.
I do think that on some level they have to appeal to the masses.
Oh, yeah. A very high level. I mean, we think about this. We're not even 1% of Game of Thrones fandom. Like, we sometimes we forget that. It's a really tiny percentage we are here.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that the masses
both
will
of
want...
you two are 1% of Game of Thrones fandom?
No, but us three.
Yeah, three of us. Yeah.
There's about 300 total people out there.
Okay. A lot of robots in our chat.
Yeah, the other people in our chat are just accidentally clicked the link. But I think a thing that needs to happen for the masses to be happy is for Cersei to die. I think that's just this payoff moment that everyone is waiting for. Same thing with the Mountain. I think that's just a payoff moment everyone's waiting for, and I kind of expect them to do that just for that reason. But I also have a hard time envisioning how it's going to happen.
Yeah,
and I do also think it needs to be bittersweet. It can't just be this perfect, tidy, happy ending.
Agree.
But what they think is bittersweet might be different from what I think. I didn't think it was that sad for. I mean, again, it's not like I wanted Lyanna and Theon to die, but just relative to if Davos and Dany had died, you know, I want to really be sad. You know.
Yeah.
For example, I think what's happening right now is already bittersweet. Like they defeated the Night King and they're fighting each other.
Yeah, that's true.
I think everything that's happening right now satisfies that for me.
Fair enough. Yeah.
From Scott Westbury, why is Jon a better ruler to Daenerys? And this is getting into what we were talking about before about, you know, we want things to work out. We want it to be realistic, but it talks about like what makes a good leader. The question continues, Jon has very little actual experience ruling and dealing with political intrigues. He does the right/moral thing even when it isn't the wise or best thing to do. This is the idealistic ignorance that got him knifed at Castle Black and had Northern Lords ready to break away from him. As ruler of Westeros, whole or in part, these entanglements and issues only become more complicated and less black and white. Jon is a person who sees so much in black and white regardless of the fallout. Is that a better ruler? It's not necessarily. It really does get into a lot of philosophy about the ideal ruler. Do you want someone like Jaehaerys, who was very active and imposed his will in very many positive ways? I think maybe if we were to pose this question back to Scott, would Jon build a system of roads throughout the Seven Kingdoms like Jaehaerys did? I don't know that he would. That's the description of the reluctant ruler. He definitely wouldn't, you know, leverage the throne for his personal desires like Robert or Aegon the Unworthy did. But on the other hand, would he leverage it for good, for like unquestionably good things? That's where the reluctant leader thing is like, I don't know. What would he do? Would he just sit back and dispense justice and not push any agendas, positive or negative?
I think he might, but the problem is that other people around him might be more manipulatable by people around him pushing their own agendas, the little fingers of the world, whatever.
Maybe.
But I think you can flip this around another way too. That same moral idealism or whatever that got him killed, okay, it also got the North united.
Mm-hmm.
It also got the wildlings safe.
Yes.
That lack of moral commitment got Robb and his whole family killed, right? So it's not, you know, like...
Yep.
Jon would have married the Frey girl, and you see what I'm saying. So there's arguments on both sides.
There's no easy answer here, and that's part of why, you know, monarchy stinks in the first place, because you get these situations where even under the best kind of scenarios, you still end up with a really bad ruler eventually, and there's no way around that. But in a voting system, you can still have that happen in a voting system too. But you can't have the most awful person, you know, who's out there. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here, but it might not be totally off topic because they have brought it up in the show.
Yes.
Dany
wants to break the will. will she? It seems like at this point she's not. You know, it seems like she's back to being. I want to be the top spoke on a wheel. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
But it was discussed. It is a point of the show, and they may even go there. And I also want to say, even monarchs have counselors. You know what I mean? Like,
so that's it's a question of Jon versus Dany, Jon versus Joffrey. You know, it's easy to tell the difference when it's Jon versus Joffrey. Like, no one wants Joffrey, but with Jon versus Dany, you get legitimate arguments, I think. And what about Ned versus Tywin? I think that Ned, you can point to some of these same quote-unquote mistakes because he's doing the right moral thing, but Ned's legacy after death is really powerful. People still want to be like him. People still wanted to fight for his ideals even though he was dead. No one wants to fight for Tywin's ideals. They're forced into it.
Yeah.
Even though he may have, quote, handled things, quote-unquote, better in certain situations, the after effects of that blew up in his face. It's like, oh, that's because people wanted to kill him. Yeah. People wanted to kill him because of shit he did to them. Right? Yeah. People wanted to kill Ned because he was a good guy in their way doing bad things.
Yeah. Bad guys wanted to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wanted to kill Tywin? Good people.
Yeah.
Well, and some bad people too. But that's who your enemies are says a lot about you. And who your friends are says a lot about you. And that's the thing about Dany. Yes, she may be turning south here, but she's always had good people around. She's always identified who the good people of character are for the most part. And when they weren't good characters, she a lot of times recognized that later. You know,
and good people have rallied to her also.
Yeah, because she's a symbol of goodness in a lot of ways. I mean, you free the slaves, and like that's good. Like, there's no way around that. That's really good. And why would you want to argue against that?
It might not have been planned out well. And
much brilliant work has been done by many brilliant researchers and scientists. So have a magnetic, must be magnetic in some sort, and in some sort of way. And if it's not, there's a very specific reason why it's not magnetic. So here's an example. This blew my mind when I found this little thing from Los Angeles, from UCLA, I think. This is such an important little video that will change your perception of what our universe or what our reality around us is, and how important a role magnetism plays in everything that surrounds us.
You might not think of water as being magnetic, but it is, and so are graphite, aluminum, and glass. This is a new and different category of magnetism called either para or diamagnetism, and it's different from the magnetism that you're used to. You're probably already familiar with ferromagnetism. Ferro means iron. An unmagnetized piece of iron, or nickel or cobalt, becomes a magnet in the presence of a magnetic field. The effect is strong and lasts even after the magnet is removed. Paramagnetism is a similar effect, except that it's much weaker and temporary. Aluminum is a good example of a paramagnet. And so is oxygen, which is attracted to magnets. Here, I have a few milliliters of liquid oxygen, which sticks to the magnet. I'll explain why later. Gadolinium oxide and cupric sulfate are good examples of paramagnetic substances. Cupric sulfate is a salt that can be picked up by a magnet. Diamagnetic materials are exactly the opposite of paramagnetic. They are always repulsed. They would rather die than be in a magnetic field. An important example of a diamagnetic material is graphite. This specially made pyrolytic graphite is repelled by a magnetic field. Don't be confused. This is not static electricity or eddy currents. Graphite is repelled by a magnet, always, both by the north and south end. Pyrolytic graphite is a grown crystal of flat carbon layers which maximizes the diamagnetic effect. Of course, the best diamagnets are superconductors, which at low temperatures provide exact opposite repulsion to whatever magnetic field is present when they're chilled. They are perfect diamagnets.
So it gives you an idea how the nature of reality around us is just, we just don't get taught this stuff, you know, we don't think about it in that sense. And how sound is actually the cause of all the stuff that we're witnessing here. And, sorry, let me go back here. You might have seen this thing before. So this sort of quantum locking is actually just a magnetic effect.
So what if we got here?
So we have quantum locking. The superconductor is locked in space, and it stays wherever I put it. You see, this is quantum trapping.
That's amazing.
As long as it's
so
cold,
it's superconducting. It's frozen with liquid nitrogen.
Upside down.
Right.
And it stays locked.
So the fact that it's superconducting is locking the magnetic field in 3 dimensions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that
pivots. You see, because this is symmetric, it can rotate without break the locking. The locking doesn't break.
Right.
Because
it stays there on the X and Y, but not on, it pivots on the...
Yeah, on the axis of the magnets. You see, if I can move it on the side, it will again pivot around the axis of the magnet, because it makes sure that the magnetic field inside of it stays the same.
Right. It's astonishing. Can you put it on the track for us?
Yeah. I just levitate it above the track quite high, and I can just rotate it.
So it's actually floating above the surface.
Yeah, it's not floating, it's locked above the surface.
So you could tilt it at an angle and it would
fly
around.
Like this, and it will just go around like this. I can just go and put it at different height, put them like this.
And lock it at the height.
Lock it, yeah, different height, different configuration. Right. And I can even lock it at opposite way. If you could just hold for a minute. High. I'm doing the same thing. I'm locking it upside down, and then it is suspended.
Fantastic.
So magnetic fields do what? They do exactly what sound does. They create toroidal fields. Just if you do this, you immediately see the toroidal fields being created by magnets around them, little toruses. And this is a full magnetic field, toroidal field spectrum. It's both positive and negative on both sides. There is no positive and negative in magnetic fields. This is where we've been incorrectly taught. It's actually just one field that work in opposite directions. It's centripetal forces that work against each other and oppose each other. And the complete toroidal field, like the toroidal magnetic field like this, has a both positive and a negative on both sides. So it both pushes and pulls from both sides. That's a complete magnetic toroid. It's not north on the one and south on the other. That's an incomplete magnetic field. This is very important information, people, and this connects us to some of the biggest lies we've been told about our reality and the world that we live in. Because we've been told that the sound of the earth creates a magnetic field. Sorry, it's the sound of the earth that creates a magnetic field, and not the molten iron core. There is no molten iron core in the center of the world. That's another theory that's been proposed, and most people believe it these days. It's a nonsensical idea. It's a sound of the earth that creates the magnetic fields around us. By now you should know that sound is the cause of everything, and especially magnetic fields. The problem with our world is that the Earth magnetic model is a half a magnetic model. It's north at the top and south at the bottom. That's not a complete magnetic field. And as far as I'm concerned, it's impossible for an Earth-like object to be in a complete magnetic field like the toroidal shape of our solar system and be an incomplete magnetic field itself. Can you see why I would say that? It doesn't make any sense. That our Earth is a half a magnetic field, an incomplete magnetic field, floating around in a complete magnetic field called our solar system. It would correct itself and over billions of years become a balanced toroidal magnetic field. How that would affect the shape of the Earth, I don't know. I'm going to let you figure that out. But this is what a complete and balanced toroidal magnetic field looks like. And what it does, it has an accretion disk in the middle. There you can see that yellow accretion disk. That's the center of the magnetic field. Whichever way you turn it, it's the same. As above, so below. We start to understand some of these basic fundamentals of creation, all coming from the breath of God, the breath of the Creator, the words that we utter. Everything that we say and create has the same effect, creating these complete, perfect magnetic fields. The torus equator plane emits energy and matter at its disk, as a disk at the equator. We accept this in the solar system. All the matter in the solar system is emitted at the equator. All the planets go out in this one disk from the sun that rotate around the sun. And the same in the galaxies. The many, many galaxies that we've been shown photographs, they're all toroidal shaped galaxies, with the matter all spewing out at the galactic equator. We're even told that we are crossing the galactic equator because our solar system does this. And we cross the galactic equator. I no longer believe that, but in any case. So the half-truths and half-lies being woven together here. And we need to now figure out which is true and which is no longer, which is a lie that we've been spun. This is some of the most beautiful new work, being able to actually see what a magnetic field looks like through the ferro lens. This is quite a new discovery, only about 10 years old. Now we can actually see what magnetic fields look like. This is when you look at a torus. This is what a torus magnetic field looks like. You can see the magnetic fields. Some people would call this the ley lines on the surface of the Earth. You can actually see the magnetic fields. So I'm suggesting that people that are reading ley lines are actually picking up the magnetic fields that crisscross the toroidal field of our planet. And the ancients knew this. They put all the ancient sites on all these magnetic lines because their ancient structures were actually driven by these magnetic lines and these toroidal field, these magnetic lines. You know what I mean? When you look at the cone-shaped magnetic field under a ferrocell, look at this. When you take a ferrocell and you put it over a speaker, like a speaker magnet, look what it does. These beautiful cone shapes that face the middle, just like what? Just like this guy's wristwatch. Can you start seeing why I'm suggesting that these guys are using technology? It was in their wristwatches, they had the cones, all to do with magneticism and sound. We just never saw it like that until we got the ferrocell given to us. And when you bring a magnet towards a ferrofluid, what does the ferrofluid do? It forms beautiful cones and just stick right out the ferrofluid. This stuff just gets better and better. And now you start seeing how sound and magneticism plays a role in nature, in structuring the flowers and the shapes of trees, and everything around us is driven by sound and the magnetic fields that actually create the shapes around us. Are you guys getting excited yet? About how this stuff works and what we've been missing. So this brings me to the ancient tools and artifacts and the torus stones and the cone-shaped tools. Now suddenly you have a very different take on when I get excited about the cone-shaped tools and why Ed Leeds-Kalnin, when I was told that he was seen levitating the giant rocks with these cone-shaped tools as ice cream cones, I got extremely excited because I understood what it means. And I've been picking up these cone-shaped tools everywhere. And suddenly you realize that they play a very important role in all of human history. This is from an iron mine in England. These are cones in Egypt. They were completely ignored until I found them. Cones in Australia. Mayan deity holding two cones, just like Ed Leeds-Kalnin was apparently seen. These cone-shaped hats that are found in some tribes that were used for special ceremonies. Why do wizards have hats as cones, and why are wizards' wands cone-shaped? And this gets really exciting. Dragonflies. We think of birds flying and bees. You may be aware of the fact that it's actually a scientific impossibility for bees or bumblebees to fly because their wings they can't carry that body weight. So this has been a mystery. So I'm going to bust that mystery for you, because dragonflies, just like bees and bumblebees and other insects or bugs like that, have actually hollow tubes in their wings. Those are not veins filled with blood. Those are hollow tubes that do what? They resonate. When the dragonflies buzz their wings, they don't flap them, they just bzzz, they vibrate. It sends vibrations through their wings and through those hollow tubes, and at the bottom of those hollow tubes they got thousands of tiny cones that stick out, that send out these sound waves or Caesar beams, we're going to get to that, that create magnetic fields around them, and this is why they can buzz around. Viktor Grebennikov became famous I think it was in the 50s, when he studied the bugs, the wings of bugs and bees, and he was fascinated by it, and then he built what became a very famous levitation platform, and he was seen and flying this thing faster than the speed of sound on one of those. Right? And people think this is crazy. And what was it made of? It was made of bugs' wings. So when you tell people, oh, he built this out of bugs' wings, people go, what kind of nonsense is that? You're a bunch of idiots if you believe that. Well, show you, he understood how these bugs' wings worked and how they actually functioned. And that's why he could build such a device, because he thought out of the box. And this is to show you some experiments how these bugs' wings actually have levitation capacity. This is mind-blowing.
Today we're going to try to get one of these shells to hover over the other one. The original of this video is what inspired me to do this series.
Nature is fabulous. So there you have an idea how Viktor Grebennikov built his little levitation device out of bugs' wings, because he figured out how these things work. And then we get to the cone-shaped tools in the Rosicrucian Museum. Somebody emailed me today saying, hey, he went and he saw these cones in the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose, and they're really there. So he was surprised that I wasn't making it up. He said, I blew his mind. And yeah, and they are written, can you see cuneiform texts that actually commemorate the building of the temples in Sumer, and one of them specifically refers to the temple of Inanna. So somehow they were used, just like Edleed Skolnin was levitating the giant rocks of Coral Castle, they were using these to levitate those giant stones of the temples of Sumer into place. And here is our friend Edleed Skolnin, Coral Castle. And he levitated those giant blocks. I think the biggest stone there weighs 30 tons, or maybe even more. And I called it the ice cream cone phenomenon, because that's what he was described. It was said that he moved them with ice cream cones in his hands. And to an uninitiated person, that would sound ridiculous. But now you all know why that is so important. It's a spectacular place. I've never been there, but I've seen lots of videos of it, and I can't wait to go. And then we get to our Torah stones, our sacred Torah stones, which are clear.
The Magi possess unimaginable power. They're able to create great towers to guard the location where the king's power is stored. They also have the ability to guide the Chosen One as the king. We have reason to believe these dungeons appearing across the world are the towers mentioned in the legends.
Upside down,
right,
and it stays locked.
So the fact that it's superconducting is locking the magnetic field in 3 dimensions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that
pivots. You see, because this is symmetric, it can rotate without break the locking. The locking doesn't break.
Right.
Because
it stays there on the X and Y, but not on, it pivots on the
on the axis of the magnets. You see, if I can move it on the side, it will again pivot around the axis of the magnet, because it makes sure that the magnetic field inside of it stays the same.
Right. It's astonishing. Can you put it on the track for us?
Yeah. I just levitated above the track quite high. and I can just rotate it.
So it's actually floating above the surface.
Yeah, it's not floating, it's locked above the surface.
So you could tilt it at an angle and it would still fly around.
Like this, and it will just go around like this. Because I go and put it at different height, put them like this.
And lock it at the height.
Lock it, yeah, different height, different configuration. Right. And I can even lock it at opposite way. If you could just hold for a minute. High. I'm doing the same thing. I'm locking it upside down, and then it is suspended.
Fantastic.
So magnetic fields do what? They do exactly what sound does. They create toroidal fields. Just if you do this, you immediately see the toroidal fields being created by magnets around them, little toruses. And this is a full magnetic field, toroidal field spectrum. It's both positive and negative on both sides. There is no positive and negative in magnetic fields. This is where we've been incorrectly taught. It's actually just one field that work in opposite directions. It's centripetal forces that work against each other and oppose each other. And the complete toroidal field, like the toroidal magnetic field like this, has a both positive and a negative on both sides. So it both pushes and pulls from both sides. That's a complete magnetic toroid. It's not north on the one and south on the other. That's an incomplete magnetic field. This is very important information, people, and this connects us to some of the biggest lies we've been told about our reality and the world that we live in. Because we've been told that the sound of the earth creates a magnetic field. Sorry, it's the sound of the earth that creates a magnetic field, and not the molten iron core. There is no molten iron core in the center of the world. That's another theory that's been proposed, and most people believe it these days. It's a nonsensical idea. It's a sound of the earth that creates the magnetic fields around us. By now you should know that sound is the cause of everything, and especially magnetic fields. The problem with